MPT to serve all of our diverse communities and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you. Live from Maryland Public Television, this is Direct Connection with Jeff Salkin.
Good evening. Welcome to your Direct Connection. Coming up tonight, answers to your questions about advances in heart surgery. But first tonight, the heart of Wall Street skipped a beat today as more coronavirus cases were found in Europe. Joining us to talk about the economic side of a possible pandemic is Darius Irani, Vice President of Strategic Partnerships and Applied Research at Towson University. Darius, thanks for stopping by.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
So Wall Street flipped out a little bit today.
Yes.
Are you personally more worried about this coronavirus than Wall Street is, or less worried, or how do you feel? You know,
I think Wall Street exaggerates some of the surprise element of the news that was announced. I, as an economist, am not worried about this as immediately. Obviously, this was a one-day event. We'll see what the markets do tomorrow morning. But nonetheless, you know, this news has sort of been slowly being factoring into the prices of equities. And, you know, we'll see, but it has dampened. I mean, overall, we have seen some dampening in economic growth around the world. And even in the U.S., they're predicting about a 0.2 slowdown, 0.2 percentage.
Let me ask a basic question.
Sure.
Why does the American market care about a virus that is 99.9% overseas, knock on wood, at this point?
Well, so there's issues about travel. So airlines impacted, any kind of, you know, hotels that are American-owned in those types of countries. Supply chain, critical. So your Apple phone, where's it coming from? So the inability for China to be able to produce some of the goods and services that we import is going to be impacted. Again, now with South Korea sort of slowing down its supply chain, that's also going to impact, you know, American producers of goods. So it does have a slow impact because basically workers aren't going to be at the work site, and that's really where it comes down to. If you're sending people home for a couple of weeks at a time to be incubated, that has a tremendous impact because, you know, the workers need to be there to produce the goods for consumption.
Yeah, and they're not going out to the movies at that point either.
Exactly.
So demand falls off.
Exactly. So domestically, China's facing people sort of being shut-ins in those provinces. Now I imagine that's going to spread over to South Korea and now Italy. And we're seeing it, you know, again, we saw recently American tourists being taken off boats. Again, 2 weeks quarantine here in the U.S. So if that expands to a larger number, that means more people out for 2 weeks at a time. And, you know, we all know that sometimes when people are out for an office for 2 weeks, productivity does drop significantly.
The idea of just-in-time manufacturing, where in a globalized world, you've got components coming from all different places. You don't keep a big inventory anymore. So the tires for the vehicle you're making this afternoon might come in this morning or yesterday. But if that plant is locked down by the coronavirus or that town is quarantined, everything else stops.
Yes, and now the good or the bad news or the silver lining to this is that, you know, since we've had sort of been in a bit of a trade war with China, some of the supply chains have shifted a little bit to take advantage of non-Chinese production facilities. It's not quite complete, but it's continuing. Obviously, in a situation where the center of this activity is in Asia. Having plants in Asia, may result that whether it's in China or in Vietnam or in South Korea, we may feel some impact of the supply chain slowing down. And I would argue that, you know, given some of the stuff is in transit, we probably won't feel it immediately, but eventually, next 3-4 weeks, you'll begin to sort of see some shortages of parts.
Let me remind our viewers, if you have a question about the economic side of the coronavirus story, give us a call. We'll have the number up on the screen. You can also email a question to livequestions@mpt.org. Reminder, Professor Irani is an economist, not an infectious disease expert, and he does not play one on TV. Let's take a phone call. Allegheny County, this is Lisa. Lisa, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
Thank you for taking my call. I'm curious to know about the ships with crew on it. You know, not just the passengers, but the crew live in not the best conditions on those ships. How is that being addressed from the shipping industry.
Thank you for the call. I don't think we have an answer to the shipping industry, but related question: when does all this show up in the number of containers that are coming in on ships to the Port of Baltimore?
I would say we're probably looking at about a 5 to 6 week sort of delay in terms of stuff already in transit, stuff that's already at the port in China as it sort of moves through. So I would say about a 5 to 6 week impact.
The market's gotten used to the Federal Reserve riding to the rescue, whatever the economic situation is. What would you expect them to do? What can they do?
Well, right now, it's the prudent action is to really just observe and sort of see what's going on, and again, provide confidence in the market that there is a steady hand at the tiller, that no rash actions are going to be taken.
The other big move in the financial markets lately has been the bond market. I mean, stocks made the headlines today. Bonds been way up. Long-term interest rates have been moving down, down, down. We have negative rates, which is sort of hard to comprehend in other places. Do we ultimately get that here?
Well, so we obviously have a flight to quality today as investors sort of shed their equities and took advantage of bonds and basically put all their investment into the bond market. So interest rates, were driven down. Long-term interest rates were driven down, and there's obviously the concern of an inverted yield curve coming forward. But generally speaking, the Fed has tried to hold interest rates in a positive fashion. Again, they want to have a tool in case the economy does sort of take a strong turn south.
They want to have some ammunition.
Exactly.
As they say. So the thing that nobody knows, and we can't guess sitting here, is with warmer weather, does the virus start to die out? The transmission becomes harder, people are outdoors more, or the flip side is, do we get a cluster here in the United States somewhere, and how much would people freak out about it?
As far as, again, I'm not an infectious disease person, so I don't know any of the vector of the virus. I would imagine that, again, if indeed it was a virus did occur here in the near term, I think people would get a little bit concerned. And, obviously, given the fact that people have to sort of stay quarantined for several weeks at a time, it does mean that would have an adverse impact on the U.S. economy.
All right. Well, we'll root for the warm weather scenario.
Yes.
Darius Sereni is Vice President of Strategic Partnerships and Applied Research at Towson University. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. Coming up tonight, why heart surgery is less invasive than ever before. We'll be right back.
Can you tell us what you know?
Turning back now to the race for the White House.
The State Board of Elections voted Thursday to set up a new election.
It must be a very emotional day.
The world changed in the blink of an eye.
Children are at the heart of this story.
Drop your phone and just be in the moment.
You guys ready?
It's a thrill to see images of a new world for the first time.
I want to look back and say, I learned something. That is where transformation happens.
I see people cry on this show, and I'm like, what y'all doing, man?
Out of the water came this giant thing.
That's incredible.
I feel it in my bones. This is so totally amazing.
They hear that song and they're like, that's my story.
I have chills.
All of the joys, all of the sorrows.
This is where it comes from. The rest is history.
Joining us for our Your Health segment this week is Dr. Ron Salinger, Clinical Assistant Professor of Surgery at the University of Maryland School of Medicine and Cardiac Surgeon at the University of Maryland St. Joseph Medical Center. Doctor, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
You do heart surgery, and I think people think of open heart surgery in particular as one of the most serious operations that anybody can have. How is it evolving?
The results in cardiac surgery have been improving over the years, and the complications have been getting less and less. What we've been looking for more recently is a way to make the whole journey less traumatic, because it's a big surgery, and a way to smooth out the recovery for patients.
What types of operations do you typically do?
We do a lot of bypass surgery for coronary artery disease. We do valve repairs, such as mitral valve repair, and we do valve replacements, such as aortic valve or mitral replacements. And sometimes, if the ascending aorta, which is the biggest artery coming right out of the heart, if that becomes aneurysmal, we'll repair that as well.
The coronary artery bypass grafts have been done for a long time. I mean, how's it different today than it was a few years ago or a few decades ago?
Well, one thing that we've done to kind of smooth out the journey for our patients is something called enhanced recovery after surgery. And this is a program where we use all best available evidence to treat our patients in each phase of care, pre-op, intra-op, and post-op, in order just to make the whole journey less traumatic, decrease complications, and better tolerated by our patients, and optimize their recovery.
How do you measure the outcome of what you're doing?
Well, that's a great question. We measure it in two ways, actually. We have our program, which has protocols in it, and we'll measure our compliance with our goals. For example, if we want to walk our patients 3 times a day after surgery, we make sure we're actually doing that. But then we also measure what impact that has on the patient's outcomes. How quickly is it getting patients back home and back to their normal lives and decreasing complications? So, and we have goals such as those in each phase of care, preoperatively, in the operating room, and after surgery.
How much is reasonable for somebody who goes through that procedure? Obviously, you're not going to be jogging home the next day. When are you out of bed, walking around? When are you doing the 3 walks a day?
So we have we like to get patients out of bed the night of surgery, and we start walking the next day after surgery. We have a goal to have our patients take 3 walks the first day after heart surgery, and last month we were 95% successful with that goal.
How does that affect the patient's recovery? What does it do for somebody? How much is physical, psychological?
Well, it's both, really, and we try to address both components of it. And we start way before the surgery even occurs, as soon as we meet the patient. So before surgery, if you were going to run a marathon, you wouldn't just show up the day of the marathon and try to run it. You would prepare yourself. And we kind of take that approach with heart surgery at St. Joe's. And so we start with the patients by really emphasizing patient education, what to expect, what they can do to help themselves, what we're going to do to help them. Some patients get physical therapy before surgery. We've also stopped starving our patients after midnight, so we allow our patients to eat after midnight the night before surgery, certain foods. And 2 hours before they go in the operating room, we give them a carbohydrate load to help their bodies meet the metabolic demands of the surgery.
You mean they're eating the carbohydrates, or you're...
They drink the carbohydrates, carbohydrate drink, with we use a complex carbohydrate drink to help give them calories.
What was the reason for not eating anything after midnight? Obviously, you wanted an empty stomach, but why?
It's based on when you put patients to sleep and put the breathing tube in, you don't want any of their gastric contents to come back up and have them aspirate that into their lungs. But it's been shown very well now and demonstrated in numerous investigations that really we were having patients not eat for longer than was necessary. So if you have about a 2-hour window, depending on the types of foods, then you're safe. And then once we get into the operating room, we're also doing a lot to minimize the trauma of the surgery. So, for instance, we minimize the amount of opioids or narcotics we use to control pain, and we have a very specific protocol with alternate agents that allows us to do that and still control pain very well. We minimize blood transfusions in the operating room for heart surgery. So if you have bypass surgery at St. Joe's, you have a little over a 1% chance of getting a blood transfusion in the operating room. National average is over 20%.
So you're able to recycle blood or lose less in the procedure?
Both. We lose less, and then we are able to wash the patient's blood that's shed during surgery and give it back to them. We also minimize the trauma of our incisions. So if you're having, for example, an aortic valve replacement at St. Joe's, we will very often use a minimally invasive approach, again, just to minimize the trauma of the surgery.
Let me remind our viewers, if you have a question for the doctor about heart procedures, you can give us a call. We'll have the number up on the screen. You can also email your questions. The email address is livequestions@mpt.org. You mentioned minimally invasive techniques. I remember, this may be 10 years ago, there was talk about beating heart surgery for coronary artery bypass procedures. Is that still a thing? Did it turn out to be feasible?
Beating heart surgery is very feasible, and we do that in select cases. It turns out it's beneficial probably in a much more specific subset of patients than we initially thought.
Let's take a phone call. Baltimore City, this is Peter. Peter, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
Hi, just following up on that, actually.
Great.
So beating heart surgery, understand, I had heard that when you take someone off their heart and put their blood through a bypass machine, there's sometimes complications or necessarily a slower recovery or something that might not be ideal. If you could comment on that. Thank you.
Thanks for the phone call. And there was also something about like cooling, maybe cooling somebody's body, their brain, or something during these procedures.
Well, both questions they're both good questions, a little bit different answers. As far as the complications related to going on the heart-lung machine, there certainly can be. And there was a lot of enthusiasm about avoiding the heart-lung machine when what we call off-pump surgery first began. But study after study came out, and for reasons we couldn't understand, there wasn't a big benefit shown for most patients undergoing heart surgery. And there are certain drawbacks. There tended to be less bypasses done, and the bypasses that were done didn't tend to stay open as well. So I think you just have to be very selective. And there's something about the complications that we had always traditionally attributed to the heart-lung machine that are really probably more attributable to the entire experience of the heart surgery and the whole trauma of the whole operation. They're probably not specifically from the heart-lung machine.
Let's take a call from Sussex County, Delaware. This is Libby. Libby, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hi, yes. I was recently diagnosed with two blocked arteries, et cetera, and when I was told that if I had the bypass surgery, I could wake up with a tracheotomy and on a ventilator, I declined. And since then, I've been reading a lot of books from cardiologists who are making quite the point about diet and how we can reverse and help our hearts through diet. How are you approaching that?
Libby, glad you called. Best of luck to you. And that goes a long way to maybe keeping somebody out of your office in the first place.
Yeah, the best thing for patients is not to need cardiac surgery at all. I agree. And I can't comment on this caller's specific case, but I can say that diet is critically important to maintaining your health. And it's very difficult, once you get to the point where you need cardiac surgery, it's very difficult to reverse that disease. But as far as preventing the disease with proper diet and moderate exercise, it's critical.
Let's take a call from Pennsylvania, York County. This is Charles. Charles, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Yes, I have a question about PFO closure at St. Joe's. I was just diagnosed with, I guess, that opening in my heart, and I wanted to know the longevity of the device closure and what to expect through the surgery.
Charles, we'll get you an answer on the air. What is that? What is it that's being closed up?
So what's being closed up, as I'm sure you know very well, Charles, is a small hole between the two top chambers in the heart, the left atrium and the right atrium. And we used to traditionally close those with open heart surgery. We'd open the heart, close the hole, and close the heart. And now, we have a very strong interventional cardiology program at St. Joe's, and that's done now most of the time in the cath lab with a device that closes, kind of sandwiches that hole closed. The durability is excellent, and their success with that procedure is outstanding.
Call from Cecil County. This is Mike. Mike, thanks for the call. Go ahead. Mike, you're on. What's your question?
Okay. Yeah, my question is about the longevity of a bovine valve. How long is it good for? I have one. I'm just wondering.
Thanks for the call. Best of luck. What are the and maybe broadly when you're working on valves, what are the alternatives that you have?
So now we basically have 3 broad categories of valves. We have our metal valves that we tend to call mechanical valves. They never wear out, rarely need to be reoperated on, but you have to take a blood thinner every day for the rest of your life if you get one. Then we have tissue valves, which are animal valves. They're made from animal tissue, either cows or pigs. And I believe actually the bovine, the data is a little bit mixed, but the bovine valves tend to be more durable than the valves that come from pigs. And depending on your age, that valve can be expected to last 15 to 20 years or more in some patients. It can vary. And then now we have what we call transcatheter valves. And they're the least invasive valves. We can put them in without opening your chest. And the durability is really yet to be defined. Those are tissue valves as well, but we haven't been following them for over 10 years, so we don't know the endpoint on those.
I was under the impression that the advent of being able to put in a stent and open up an artery in a cath lab had severely reduced the number of open heart procedures that were done for that. But you were telling me the surgery suite is as busy as ever. And there's some advantages to, in some cases, of going straight to surgery.
The number of bypass surgeries that we're doing is slightly up, actually, and I think that may be attributable for 2 reasons, I think. One, I think aging baby boomer population is just bringing more people into the entire, for stents and bypasses. I think also, though, that recent investigations over the last 5 to 10 years have shown that surgery really has a stronger long-term benefit than stenting for patients who have what we call 3-vessel coronary artery disease. And so a lot of patients are going to surgery for that long-term benefit.
Viewer wants to know by email, is ablation, A-B-L-A-T-I-O-N, considered heart surgery?
So one of my colleagues at St. Joe's, a cardiologist named Brett Roberts, who specializes in ablation in the cath lab, can do it without open surgery. It's definitely a procedure, but it can be done through the groin with catheters. And he's a specialized type of cardiologist that does that with excellent results.
And it has to do with heart rhythm disorders?
Heart rhythms, such as atrial fibrillation or other things. And sometimes, if you need heart surgery for something else and you also have a heart rhythm that's amenable to being ablated, we will do the ablation in the operating room as well. But many times, you don't need to be opened up just for that.
Let's take a call from Baltimore County. This is Yvonne. Yvonne, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Actually, I'm calling because I have some concerns, and I want the doctor to just help me or clarify. My husband was having cardiac arrest, but fortunately I was able to revise him not 1 time but 3 times. The paramedic that I believe that was going to take him to St. Joseph, they actually took him to Union Memorial, and it was my understanding that the hospitals were no longer accepting patients, that they only could take the patients where there was room for that patient to come, and I need some clarity on that. My husband actually passed, not from the heart attack, because of a lack of oxygen from the brain.
Yvonne, so sorry to hear that, and we appreciate the phone call. I mean, there are a limited number of hospitals that do open heart surgery, and it's limited by the state with the theory that if you have a small number of places doing it, the quality is going to be better. And maybe talk about that a little bit. You probably can't address what the paramedics did, but the role of a high volume center when it comes to heart procedures.
So I also am very sorry to hear that story. But as far as the question that you posed, cardiac surgery takes a lot of people. It takes a village to have a good cardiac surgery program. And if you dilute those programs around the state, if you have a lot of programs doing a small number of cardiac surgery, the quality at each particular program would probably suffer. So it's so highly specialized that it's probably better concentrated in certain centers to assure the volume.
The enhanced recovery protocols that you were talking about, why is that especially successful in heart surgery? Is there something about those procedures, the subset of patients, where making a bunch of little changes can make a big difference in the outcome?
Yeah, because heart surgery is so complex and there's so many small things that add up to a successful outcome, it's the perfect type of specialty for enhanced recovery where you get every little detail perfect, and what patients get to see is a less traumatic experience, a smoother recovery. They go home quicker. They come back less with new problems. They get back to their normal lives.
And is the idea that what you're working on at St. Joe's is something that can be expanded to other hospitals in the system and beyond?
Absolutely. There are other hospitals working on it. And in fact, we're working with our colleagues across the system who are also developing similar programs.
Very good. Dr. Ron Sellinger, University of Maryland St. Joseph Medical Center. We know you're a busy man. Thanks for the time.
Thank you.
And Thursday at this time on Your Money and Business, new technology making life easier in nursing homes and tips for how to ask the boss if you can work from home. Join us Thursday at 7. For all of us at MPT, thanks for watching and have a good night.
Your Health segments are a co-production of Maryland Public Television and the University of Maryland Medical System.
This program was made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities.